Good evening and welcome to Across the Pitch. We're the soccer show for people who think the Blues are a hockey team from St. Louis.
Well, aren't they? They are, aren't they?
Well, yeah, I mean, they are, but there's another blue that we're going to talk about.
The Sky Blues. Yes, the Sky Blues we're going to be talking about. I'm sure there's a few other teams that probably go by the Blues as well.
That is one interesting thing about the English Premier League with the promotion and relegation system is that you can actually have two teams with the same nickname end up in the league.
Yes, very true. And of course, Everton plays in blue, but they call themselves the Toffees for whatever reason.
Don't they have the Werther's Originals?
You could be right. I don't know. I've actually been to the ground and I couldn't tell you. So on tonight's show, we talk about a game with little consequence. We talk about another game that might be the game of the week. In fact, I don't think it's the game of the week. I think it's the game of the year. No, it's not. It's the game of the century. And we learn how to make friends and influence people.
Thank you, as always, for listening and tuning into Across the Pitch. My name is Phil Kennedy, and this is my co-host,
Aaron Ayres. Happy to have you aboard.
Absolutely, and it's an exciting week because we have a lot to cover. As Aaron mentioned earlier, we had maybe the game of the century.
I might be overdoing it a little bit. I'm sure there's been plenty of other games to come to mind. Notably, I don't know, Arsenal beating either Tottenham or Manchester United probably comes to mind first. But this was a belter, though, as they say over there. This was a cracker. This is one of those games for the ages, Phil.
It was a barn burner, as we say over here.
Barn burner? I can see that.
I think that's because back in the day, they would go and burn down the barn after they win.
Well, okay, all right.
As they say over here, it was quite the barn burner. It was a game that was decided by 11 millimeters, wasn't it?
11 millimeters. Absolutely nothing. That's what they call a boar hair in Scotland.
That's about one third of an inch.
You know what? Okay, so the game we're talking about, of course, is the Manchester City versus Liverpool blockbuster. And I tell you what, it lived up to the hype. This thing was being built up for basically the first half of the season. And it lived up to every respect of the hype. It was incredible. We saw standout team performances, individual brilliance, and gee, weren't Manchester City saved by that little wrist action there that the referee has.
We also had Mohamed Salah getting tangled up in the back of the net.
Oh, yeah. Was that before or after the game?
That goes back to that 11 millimeter goal that we were talking about, or the 11 millimeter non-goal. And I think that one of the things that we should definitely talk about is in the English Premier League, while they do not have the VAR or video assistant referee technology available until next year, they do have some incredible technology that the referee actually wears a wristwatch, and it will alert the referee if the ball has completely crossed the goal line to register a goal.
Yes, and that's an important rule there, and I just want to emphasize that. All of the ball has to cross all of the line for it to be considered a goal.
Exactly, and that's actually the opposite of American football, where in American football, if any part of the ball touches the goal line, then that's automatically a touchdown.
Exactly.
It's completely the opposite with soccer, where if any part of the ball is not past the goal line, in this case it was 1/3 of an inch of the ball that was not over the goal line before it was cleared away by Manchester City defenseman John Stones.
And I tell you what, he needed to clear that away, otherwise he could have hung his head in shame. He would have been absolutely ridden out of town on a pony, because it was basically a little error that he set up beforehand that made that sort of bounce back into the goal. It was almost an own goal. It was ridiculous. And if you don't know what we're talking about, you can go and see it on our Facebook page, facebook.com/acrossthepitch, and you can see the madness that led up to that.
I should warn you, if you are a Reds fan, it may make you want to throw your remote control across the room if you're watching it on TV. I think one of the themes of our episode tonight is actually nicknames, where we've mentioned before that all of the English Premier League teams have nicknames, but they don't get used that often, with the exception, of course, the Spurs, which is the Tottenham Hotspur, and then
Yes.
also the Wolves, which are the Wolverhampton Wanderers.
Yes,
But in
mate, but
the
come on now. I mean, that's just pure laziness. That's not necessarily a nickname, is it now? I mean, who the hell is going to say Wolverhampton has the ball, Wolverhampton moves it forward? No one's going to do that. Pure laziness. It's like, oh, we'll just shorten it to Wolves. And I'm pretty sure that's how they came about it, wasn't it? It was like, oh, I don't know. What should we call them? And all of a sudden someone pipes up from the back, what about the Wolverhampton Wolves? And you know what's going to happen? It's going to be crickets for like 3 seconds. And everyone's going to be like, how the hell do we not think of that? It's not so much a nickname as it is just laziness, I reckon.
they should have really fucked with people and called them the Bears.
The Wolverhampton Lambs. Come on now.
Derby County already has that.
Who?
Derby County is a EFL Championship League team. They are known as the Rams. Manchester City actually has a rather interesting nickname, and it's one that reminds me of an American nickname where, of course, the New York Mets is actually short for the New York Metropolitans, and Manchester City, their nickname is the Citizens. So the Citizens were victorious over the Reds, is how we would have announced that in American football.
Yeah. That Citizens is a bit of a lame nickname, isn't it? It's like, oh yes, we vote. You know, we have a 90% turnout rate. We're good citizens. Twats. Anyway.
If you want to talk about lazy, what's more lazy than the Reds and the Blues? Hey, we're wearing
Fair
a
enough.
red shirt. Let's be the Reds.
They've got a liver bird. Couldn't they be Liverpool livers? No, that doesn't make sense at all. Liverpool doesn't make sense in general. I love the town. Don't get me wrong. I love you guys.
The Liverpool Rivermen or something like that. Why don't they just call them the Beatles?
Why not? Why not indeed? Oh, God, could you imagine? Hey, the British invasion, the Liverpool British invasion. Oh, come on. They'd sell a million shirts in the US, just harking back to those Beatles days.
We digress.
Yes.
I'm taking your line right there.
I think we've certainly got off topic there a little bit. But anyway, back to the game, and it was a game of millimetres, not even inches, because that's an American term.
This is the significance of the 11 millimeters, is coming into the game, Liverpool had a 7-point advantage on Manchester City. The game finished 2-1 in favor of Manchester City, which gave Manchester City, of course, 3 points and Liverpool, of course, 0 points. Had this goal gone the extra 11 millimeters and crossed the goal line, assuming that the game played out the same way from there on and finished 2-2, then you would have had each team walking away with 1 point, in which case Liverpool maintains their 7-point lead.
Right.
As opposed to now they're only ahead by 4, which is still significant because that's still more than what Americans would refer to as one full game ahead in the standings.
Right.
But it's, of course, much less than 2 full games ahead in the standings, which is what, 7 points.
Right. More than 2, you're quite right. Had Leroy Sané's goal missed, and I tell you what, that was a close one too. If that was 11 millimetres to the left, might have been a different result. And that would have put Liverpool 10 points ahead. And you'd have to say, halfway through, may not be the title decider, but could well have put Liverpool a little bit out of sight there, I think. So what you're saying, Phil,
I'll tell you what is significant in terms of the 3 points is is when you look at Liverpool's remaining schedule, they only have 3 games remaining against Big Six teams for the
Right.
rest of the season. So that's really only 3 games where they're going to face competition that's even on their level. And 2 of those games are at home. So realistically, there's not going to be a lot of times coming up later in the season that Liverpool's going to be losing points, assuming that they keep playing the way that they are, don't get hit with major injuries, anything like that.
But that's quite remarkable, though, Phil. I mean, just a few weeks ago, we were talking about how Man City looked unbeatable. And since that point, they've gone and lost 3 games. And they do look fallible. Liverpool, the weight of expectation, they haven't won a Premier League title. They haven't won since the Premier League era. There is a huge weight of expectation upon their shoulders there, and they all know it. Also, here's the other thing.
Not just them, but Jurgen Klopp, their manager, he has a bit of a titleless monkey on his back,
He
too.
does. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. But here's the other thing as well. Not only do you have the race to the top, you've also got the race to the bottom, as you'll see on our blog. And that's, of course, the relegation teams. Now, these are teams that are scrapping for their lives. Inevitably, those bottom 3, bottom 5, even up to 8 teams I've seen some years, are scrapping to stay afloat. These are the games that you will see that will throw spanners into title hopes and dreams. You know, it's going to be a fascinating title race, and this is what we're talking about right now.
Well, absolutely, because it's not like a dominant team like a Liverpool can't lose to a mid-table team, because those 3 losses that you mentioned for Manchester City, I don't believe any of those were against Big Six teams. I know
Correct.
One was Crystal Palace, one was Leicester City, I believe.
Chelsea was the other one, of course. How can we forget? Sorry, Matt Robards. Sorry,
yes,
mate.
that was a Big Six team. So
Yes.
so two out of the 3 losses were to Big Six teams for Manchester City. Or excuse me, two out of the 3 losses were to mid-table teams. Only one to Big Six. So
Right.
I mean, you know, especially a team like a Crystal Palace or a Leicester, a physical team like that could give Liverpool problems, because they do rely so much on the explosiveness of their offense. The one thing that I would say is certainly, unlike a team like Arsenal, they have the defense where they're not going to concede soft goals to a team like a Leicester or a Crystal Palace either. They're
Right. Wouldn't call Crystal Palace a soft team. I'd say they're a fairly physical team. But I know what you're saying, like a lesser team in a game that they're expected to win. Correct.
I'm not calling them a soft team in terms of physicality. I said soft goals.
Oh, I see. Right.
I consider them to be a subpar offensive team.
Sure, absolutely.
The Premier League, however, is actually off all the way until the 12th. We're recording this on Friday, and unfortunately, some of these games that we're about to talk about will have already been played by the time this comes out. But the big topic for this week is the Premier League teams are making their first appearance in the FA Cup, which, as we've talked about before, is the Football Association Cup, which is the open tournament for any team in England.
Any team in England. All you need is to pony up the money, decent ground, and I don't know, I think you probably need to have a kit that matches as well.
Today we kicked off what is the 3rd round of the FA Cup, and how this works is, like as Aaron mentioned, it's an open tournament to any team in England that pays the entry fee and has their own stadium. You don't have to be a league team. So in the first 2 rounds, you have the what are called the non-league teams. That means any of the teams that aren't in the Premier League, Championship, League One, or League Two. Those would compete in the first round. In the second round, they bring in the League Two and League One teams. And then as it advances into the 3rd round, that's when they bring in the Championship and Premier League teams. Right. And we kicked off that round today with a matchup between the Tottenham Hotspur and
poor old Tranmere.
The Tranmere Rovers.
Oh boy. Tranmere isn't a team that we've spoken of. Oh, actually, I think it was. I think it was my old boss's team. He was a Tranmere. Well, I think, what are they? League Two? They're the other Liverpool team. They're just across the Mersey in Birkenhead.
And since this is our nicknames episode, we should mention that Tranmere Rovers, their nickname actually is the Rovers. However, they are also known as the Super White Army.
Super White. Yes, that's right. Wow, that was a... Damn, Phil, you've been doing some research in this.
They currently sit in 9th place in League Two. As we mentioned before on the show, League Two is the 4th tier of English soccer.
So what happened today, Phil? Because it was Tottenham,
the first 30 minutes of the game did not go so bad as we were all knotted up at 0-0 level, as they say across the pond. Just before halftime, the Spurs scored a goal, and it went into halftime at 1-0. We came back out for the second half, and that's when the wheels came off for Tranmere.
It truly did. It truly did. Oh, I felt so bad for them. A space of not more than 10 minutes, they were 5-0 down.
Yeah, it was just one goal after another, and I felt bad for this poor goaltender because, I mean, these guys were just getting point-blank shots. Now, I will say that I believe it was Tottenham's 5th goal was clearly offsides and should not have counted.
Well, that might have been the game decider.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the Rovers were still in it until that.
But you know, I'm not going to cut you off here, Phil. But something happened a little bit later after the 6th goal that Tottenham scored.
Yes, it was after the 6th goal, and it was around the 80th minute. Now, we should start off by saying that Harry Kane of Tottenham did not start this game. Around halftime, I want to say it was around the 40-minute mark, we saw him warming up on the sidelines a bit, but at this point, the game was either still 0-0 or 1-0. And, we're thinking at this point, okay, well, Tranmere's putting up a fight. They might have to try to bring him in to win this.
Yeah.
However, we get to about 40 minutes in the game time later, going into the 80th minute. It's now 6-0 Tottenham. And what do we see but none other than Harry Kane gets up and starts jogging on the sidelines. And I text Aaron and I say, certainly they're not going to bring him in now.
I said, no way.
Why? Bigger than shit.
Why would they bring him in now? Because you're 6-0.
This is what has me cheesed off. Cheesed off this week.
And rightly so, mate. I mean,
in the 80th minute of the game, Harry Kane comes in, and of course, within 3 minutes, he scored. And, I felt bad. This poor goalie had as much chance of stopping Harry Kane as I did.
I could have put 11 of you on a plank of wood, or 10 of you on a plank of wood. And, it would have been better, I think. I think it would have been better.
I don't know about all of the unwritten rules of soccer, but I know that in American sports we have unwritten rules per se, and I'm just going to say that this is the type of thing that would get a guy have a 95-mile-an-hour fastball whiz past his ear.
It's called running up the score, and you know what? That's exactly what it is, mate, and I was shocked to see this. I mean, here's what happens in English football. You don't run up the score. That's not a term over there, by the way. That's an American term, but it's apt in this case. You're against lowly Tranmere, you're 6 goals up, you're going to go and put on your younger players to give them a bit of a game time. You know what I mean? These guys that haven't had a Premier League start, you're going to get them out there, get them to have a bit of a run around against some sort of opposition, and you're not going to lose the game. What the fuck? And I don't swear that much on this podcast, at least. What the fuck was that all about? Seriously. What was Pochettino
Absolutely no idea. Because if this is a Premier League game, I can understand, okay, goal differential matters in the standings, get another goal, run it up, whatever. Makes complete sense. This is a knockout tournament. Goal differential means nothing. You win, you go on, you lose, you go home. Goal differential means nothing. Plus, here's why it makes even less sense. Okay, so now you have the Spurs, who are not even a deep team to begin with. They're already struggling with injuries, and now you're going to bring your best player on the field against some third-rate team with nothing to lose and
Ridiculous.
risk getting him injured? Why? So he can score a goal and then run around and look embarrassed like he didn't even want to score it?
Really, what the hell is that? No, I'm with you, Phil. I'm cheesed off about that too. Don't do that. That's just poor sportsmanship. Ah,
It really is. There's just absolutely no need for it. It would be like if you were up by 10 runs in the 8th inning. Let's say that you had a guy like Paul Goldschmidt and you start him, it's his day off and he's on the bench all day. In the 9th inning, you're up 10-0 and you pinch hit with Paul Goldschmidt. Why are you going to get him off the bench in that situation? You're just going to piss the other team off. They're probably going to hit him with a pitch. I mean, what's he going to do? Hit a home run and put you up 11-0?
It's just a puzzle logic. I don't get it. And that's how you make friends and influence people. I can tell you, he has made 0 friends in the western half of Liverpool. That's just awful. Just awful. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Anyway.
That's just one of 32 games in this round, I believe. I believe there's 64 teams left in the tournament at this point,
right.
And there are 32 games. Most of them are played on either Saturday or Sunday. There is one game on Monday. Saturday has a particularly interesting lineup where early in the morning U.S. time would be 7:25 a.m. Eastern time, 5:25 here in Arizona. Saturday morning is going to be our team of the month, Luton Town.
Welcome aboard, lads.
Sheffield Wednesday.
Oh, boy. And I tell you what, I think we've actually gone and done our friends, our good friends, Matt and Elizabeth, who are Sheffield Wednesday fans, because we do put a bit of a heckler, if you will, upon our teams of the month.
Hey, it works for Sports Illustrated.
Yes, exactly. And we are exactly like Sports Illustrated, minus the bikinis.
And since this is our nicknames episode, I should mention that our team of the month, Luton Town, has one of my favorite nicknames.
Go on.
They are called the Hatters.
Yes.
The Hatters, it goes back in the 1800s when the team formed. Haberdashery was the main industry in Luton, and that's why their football club became known as the Hatters.
So, back in the day, they used to make those hats, those big stovepipe hats, the top hats out of lead. And they used to call them mad as hatters because they go mad from the lead poisoning, of course. I tell you what, their fans are not necessarily mad in an angry sense, but they're mad because they're bloody well doing bloody good this year, Luton Town. Aren't they just killing it?
Absolutely. Right now, they're second in League One, which has them in position to be promoted to the EFL Championship next year. If they can hold on to that, they'll get one of the 2 guaranteed promotion spots. They're also scoring goals at an incredible rate. And as we mentioned in the last episode, they have one of the best goal differentials of any team in all of Europe. And that's not just including English leagues, that's including all of the leagues in Europe. They're somewhere in the top 5 in goal differential.
Incredible. This is a promoted side.
In their last game, however, they did fail to score a goal. However, they didn't give one up either, as they ended up with a 0-0 draw with Barnsley. Before that, on December 29th, they also had a draw. This time it was 2-2 against Walsall, and they won 2-0 on Wednesday, December 26th against Scunthorpe.
That game against Barnsley is not necessarily a bad result for them because they're both vying for that championship playoff place there. Barnsley is on 46 points. They're right behind Sunderland on 50 points and Luton Town's on 52. But you have a look at where Luton Town is. They're sandwiched between 2 big clubs. Portsmouth and Sunderland are big clubs of misfortune in recent years, and Luton Town is sandwiched between the two and really giving them hell. And it's great to watch. I tell you what, go the Hatters. We're with you in January.
Absolutely. And League One is especially interesting this year because of some of these big clubs. I should mention that we will actually, I'm sure everybody's been waiting to hear about this. In the very near future, we are going to dedicate an episode to the very popular Netflix series, Sunderland Till I Die. Give a watch to it. It's such a well done documentary that it's really must see. And like Aaron had said, Sunderland actually was a team that has spent most of its existence in the Premier League, and over the past 2 seasons they've actually been demoted twice all the way down to League One, and that's what the documentary really covers, is about Sunderland's fall and how it's affected really the whole city. But going back to our team of the month, like Aaron mentioned, right now Portsmouth is in first on 57 points. Luton is in second on 52. Sunderland is at 50. And Barnsley is at 46. So I think that the biggest point that Aaron was making about that 1-1 draw that we were talking about with Barnsley not being a bad result, if we compare that back to what we were talking to with Liverpool and Manchester City, by getting that draw, that allowed Luton Town to stay 6 points or 2 full games ahead of Barnsley. So that definitely wasn't a bad result.
I tell you what, I do have a story in mind already about 6-point matches. You might say that sounds a little bit ridiculous to have 6-point matches, but you quite often hear about it's a 6-point relegation game. And what that means is if you're in the relegation zone and you win against a fellow relegation zone team, it's actually worth 6 points when you think about it, because they drop 3 points, you gain 3 points. And it's, you'll hear that come up time and time again in the next coming months. And I have to say, that was a 6-point title game. So as we spoke about earlier, it could have been 10 points, but it's actually 4 points the difference between Liverpool and Man City. Fantastic stuff.
The equivalent to an NFL team intercepting a pass in the end zone and then returning it for a touchdown.
That's exactly what it is. So about the Sheffield Wednesday versus Luton Town. Luton are unbeaten in their last 4 away games against Sheffield Wednesday. They have progressed only one from the FA Cup third round, and that was a 1-0 victory over Wolves, of all teams, would you believe?
The thing that we should point out is that Luton is a League One team, while Sheffield Wednesday is an EFL Championship team. So they are playing one league up. However, this is sure to be a good matchup.
I think so.
Based on the way the two teams have been playing, I'm going to say I'm going to give the edge to Luton.
Let's go the Hatters. I'm with you on the Hatters.
I know that we've talked about how much we all love ESPN Plus before. The amazing thing about ESPN Plus is that every single third round game is available to stream. And just going over here, after the Luton game, we have a rare televised in America opportunity to see our personal favorite team, Accrington Stanley, take on Ipswich Town.
Come on, Ackers.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting matchup, because once again, this is going to be a League One team playing up against an EFL Championship team. However, Ipswich, I believe the last time I checked, is at the very bottom of the championship table. So this is sure to be an interesting matchup. Then as we move on a little bit later into the day, we have Arsenal against a League One side in Blackpool. We can only hope that they show a little bit better sportsmanship than the Spurs did today.
Phil, you make me laugh. We'll be lucky to get out of that with 1-0.
Now, Blackpool, they're another team that spent quite a bit of time in the Premier League and has fallen on a bit of a hard time and is now down in League One. And they're mid-table in League One, so they're probably right on about the same level as Stanley.
Blackpool were one of those teams that had the whole Icarus thing. You know, they flew too high, too close to the sun. They spent too much money, and as a result, they're suffering ever since. Yeah, it's a sorry tale for Blackpool. Probably even worse than Sunderland. Sorry, guys.
Now, before we wrap up our conversation about the FA Cup, I think that we need to talk about this week's Player of the Week. And honestly, I can't think of anybody in the entire Premier League that's playing better than this guy right now. He has scored 8 goals in his last 9 Premier League appearances. In today's game, he added another goal and 2 more assists. And we're talking about Son Heung-Min of the Tottenham Hotspur. He's a South Korean international, 26 years old.
The scourge of the Socceroos, they call him.
One very, very interesting fact about him is that he recently played on South Korea's team in the Asian Cup, which they were able to win the entire tournament. It was the 2018 Asian Games. And as a part of this, because he won, he was actually exempted from mandatory military service of the South Korean Army.
Interesting.
Just to think about how wildly outrageous this is, this guy is very clearly the best football player from South Korea. He's with a major team. He's 26 years old. He's already been playing with, he was in Bundesliga since 2010. So this guy has been playing big club soccer since he was 18 years old.
Yep.
This would be the equivalent to if LeBron James had to win the Olympics to avoid having to leave the NBA at 26 and go be in the Army for 2 years.
Yeah, that's pretty much. Yeah, he's like the Elvis of South Korea, apart from the fact that Elvis actually went. I don't like the guy. He's the guy that I love to hate because not only is he Tottenham, he's also South Korea. So therefore, Arsenal, obviously in the English Premier League, and my beloved Socceroos, God bless their rubbish heart. They sometimes win the Asia Cup, and South Korea is going to be in the way because of this guy.
He's an absolutely fantastic player. I would even argue if you told me that I could have Harry Kane or Son Heung-Min, I would probably take Son.
Well, yeah, I would too.
He's a much more complete player.
Exactly.
I mean, Harry Kane is a goal machine, but this is a guy, and you know, if you watch his highlight videos, this is a guy that can literally take the ball on the defensive half of midfield, take it all the way down, beat every defender. He could dribble 4 or 5 guys and score a goal. Like I said, he has 2 assists today. I would say that he's probably one of the top 10 players overall in the Premier League.
You know what? And I would have to absolutely agree with you. And that's a wonderful segue into our across the pitch questions. This one brought in by Ben. Question for you lads. Who is your standout player in the EPL so far? I think we've just mentioned his name.
Are you talking for the whole season, or are you talking for the last 9 games?
Well, you know, form's a finicky thing, isn't it? You know, I would have to say he's certainly found his stride in the last 9 games. Now, come on, that's like a quarter of the season there.
They've played 21 games now, so for half the season, he's maybe been the best player, but I would have to say if you take the body of work of the whole season into account, you have to give that to Eden Hazard. For 2 reasons. One, certainly he's battled some injuries. He's had some games where he didn't score, but he's had a part in 19 goals, either by scoring them himself or assisting on them, which is more than any other player in the league. And I think that he's more important to his team. If you take Hazard away from Chelsea, they're really in serious trouble.
Sure.
If you take Son off the Spurs, they still have Harry Kane, Christian Eriksen, Dele Alli. I just think that Son has a better supporting cast with the Spurs than what Hazard has with Chelsea, and I think that the Hazard is doing more with less. He's done it all the way since the beginning of the season, because before this run of the last 9 games, Son only had 1 goal coming up to that. That being said, he also he wasn't seeing quite as much playing time earlier in the season. However, as the Spurs have had some injuries, particularly with Lamela going out, Son has not only been playing almost every Premier League game, he's been playing every Champions League game. He started today in the FA Cup game. I mean, this guy is playing major minutes.
So what I'm hearing from you is, given the game time, he's a world-class player.
Without a doubt.
You're saying that Lamela kept him out, and that was a mistake. And then when Lamela hasn't sort of come back, and he may find it difficult to come back on this form, I don't know, mate. I'm going to disagree with you here.
It's a crowded midfield.
Well,
really
absolutely,
is.
yeah. But I think Son is, well, he's certainly the player at the moment, and he's certainly the surprise packet, which was the second half of Ben's question over there when he asks, who is the surprise package? Keep the response clean for that one.
For my surprise package, I think that the guy you really have to look at is Richarlison.
No, but he was already, they bought him, they knew he was going to be good.
He's a guy that scored more goals in half a season than he scored in a whole season.
I don't think he's a surprise package, though. I don't think he's that surprise package you're talking about. Callum Wilson, your mate Callum, he's probably a surprise packet right there.
I thought about Callum Wilson also. He's kind of struggled the past few games after his injury.
What about, oh, no, I know who the surprise packet is. Your mate, Romelu Lukaku, actually scoring some bloody goals. He's the surprise packet. There it is. He's finally come good.
He's a 100-plus goal scorer in the Premier League.
Oh, all it took, though, for him to actually look anywhere halfway decent was from our mate Jose Mourinho to leave.
How about this for a surprise package is what about our buddy Matteo Guendouzi? Who would have thought that he would be taking the minutes that he has? A 19-year-old coming into Arsenal. He played in League 2 last year, which is the second tier of the French league. He's coming in and he's taking minutes away from a guy like Granit Xhaka, who's captain of his international team.
Yeah, but he's a bit rubbish, though, isn't he?
We'll agree to disagree on that
one. Oh, dear.
Granit Beckham, I'm telling you.
No, oh God, no. Well, I mean, at least Beckham could defend at some point. Granit Xhaka just watches them wander by going, oh, hey, hope you have a nice day, cheerio. Oh, he's rubbish. He's absolutely rubbish.
I don't care what he has for breakfast.
Oh, dear. He might as well be eating a bowl of cereal on the field. Sometimes he's that damn stuck to the pitch. Oh, God. Anyway, that's enough of that.
How about for the surprise package, the disappearing act of Mesut Ozil?
Ah, yes. I'm sure we've spoken at length about this. Mesut Ozil looks like he's probably going to Juventus. As our good friend and analyst, Matt Robards, mentioned, looks like he's probably going that way. But it probably won't be in the January transfer window. And there's some weird things happening there in the Arsenal dressing room with Unai Emery and the team there. We've spoken about it at length off.
Well, we were supposed to keep this clean.
What?
You said weird things going on in the locker room.
Oh, come on. I don't know. I have a feeling that Unai Emery is probably struggling to win over sections of the locker room. And this might be part of the reason why 1 week Mesut Ozil is captain and the next week he's not. In fact, he doesn't even show up for whatever it is, back spasms, ankle injuries, you name it, call it whatever it is. It sounds like bollocks to me. Okay, we haven't spoken about this, Phil. I don't know who's going to be in this podcast. But what the hell is happening in Arsenal?
A lot of it has to do with what you're saying about fractured locker room. And I think that that's kind of natural because Unai Emery, he seems like a do-it-my-way guy. And what you really have is he's coming in, and most of these guys are Arsene Wenger's guys.
Yep.
I mean, you have, other than really Guendouzi,
Yep.
Torreira, Lacazette, Aubameyang, those are the only 4 guys on the team that I would really say weren't part of the old guard
Yep.
per se.
Yep.
I think that some guys have really, taken to it. I think as much as Aaron doesn't really have him being his favorite player, that granted Xhaka has done better under Emery than under Wenger. I think another guy, even though he's hurt right now, is Hector Bellerin. He's done very well with
His
Emery's
fashion.
system.
He's done very well with his fashion. Oh, no, I don't know whether you've seen it, but you need to go and have a look at this. Like, go and have a look at what Hector Bellerin has been doing on the sidelines whilst injured. And I'll tell you what, God, his fashion sense is injurious. It is awful. He kind of looks like he's Jamiroquai mixed with George Costanza. And no, he's just, I don't know what, he's trying to make a statement off the pitch as well. I think he may have his own clothing brand. Whatever you do, don't go out and buy it. It's just awful.
Another guy that's doing well under Emery's system is Nacho Monreal. I have tweeted Taco Bell asking them to please add Nacho Monreal as a menu item. Haven't heard back on that one
Really?
yet.
Oh, boo. Call us Taco Bell.
But from what I've heard, they're planning to extend Monreal for 2 more years. So here's what I really look at. I think that you have Aubameyang, Lacazette, Guendouzi, Torreira, Xhaka, Bellerin, and Monreal are kind of the guys that I think are going to be around. I think that the other guys, your Ramses, your Ozil, maybe a couple of the defensemen, I think that you're going to see those guys slowly phased out. And over the next 2 transfer windows, you're going to see maybe a couple of additions. The other thing is that Arsenal, they have a lot of young guys coming up. Of course, we've talked at length about Emile Smith-Rowe. We have Maitland-Niles coming up, Dekesha. The Gunners certainly have a lot of young guns on the horizon that are really players that could score some goals for them.
I don't think we need to be like completely Arsenal-centric about this, but there was a young guy who had his EPL debut, Saka. Now, he's a guy who did very, very well. Oh, God, he's got a terrible name. He really did.
Sounds like an alcoholic beverage.
Oh, it sounds like a porn star move, actually. Bukayo Saka, poor lad. Even the commentators, when he came on, said the other day that he looks excellent. He's a player to watch out for, and he's one of these guys that will come on and tear the game apart. So I think you're right, Phil. I think there is the changing of the guard. There's a new broom coming through here, and I'm sure Mesut Ozil and the likes of those old players have probably said, no, that's not the way things are done at Arsenal. And Unai Emery has just gone, well, fuck you.
With Arsene Wenger, it was an inmates running the asylum situation.
Right.
I think that Ozil probably did whatever the fuck he wanted under Arsene Wenger, and Emery comes in. I mean, it's just one of those things where any time a coach that's been there for 22 years gets replaced,
right,
and the guy coming in is a strong personality with a background of success, there's going to be a changing of the guard. The new guy's going to want to do it his way.
Without a doubt.
I think that what we're seeing right now with some of the struggles Arsenal's had is really what we expected at the beginning of the season, was that it wasn't going to be a completely smooth road. And at the end of the day, we're still sitting 5th in the table with a 6th place roster.
Doing okay. I think we're doing okay. As my mate Ben said, and quite rightly so, you're not going to win overnight. There was no panacea, if you will, for Arsenal's ills. It ran deeper than the coach, and Unai Emery is trying to sort that out. And he's probably got 2 good transfer windows before the Arsenal fans are going to get in his back and go, hey, mate, nothing's changed. So he's got some time, and time is what he needs. And you know what? I actually think he's doing an okay job, considering what he's walked into.
It's not the easiest situation in the world, because with Ozil, he's been getting paid an awful lot of money. I believe it's $311,000 a week.
$350,000 a week.
And he's signed through 2021, so that's not an easy contract to unload. They're going to have to eat some of that when they move him.
Yes.
That's going to limit who they're going to bring back in return, especially with him not being a young player. It's not as if they're turning over a 22-year-old guy that's under contract for that many years. They're turning over a 31-year-old guy that's making that much money for 2 more years. That's kind of the situation like where the Diamondbacks are at, where they can't move Zach Greinke.
Right, exactly. Last thing, just for our American listeners, is there or has there ever been a coach in the NFL or any other professional sports team in America that has been in charge for 20 years? How long has Bill Belichick been in charge for?
Belichick is in his 19th or 20th year.
Okay.
Don Shula was with the Dolphins for over 20 years. Tom Landry was with the Cowboys for over 20 years.
Okay.
In baseball, there was Connie Mack, manager of the Philadelphia Athletics, now the Oakland Athletics, but he was manager for 50 years, I want to say.
Heck, all right.
He managed from when he was 30 until he was 80.
So, what happened to those teams after those guys left?
The Cowboys are the perfect example.
Yeah.
It was a very, very similar situation to Arsene Wenger in the sense Wenger was a 3-time champion of the Premier League. Tom Landry won 3 Super Bowls with the Cowboys. However, both of them, by the end of the career, the game had kind of passed them by. They were holding on to some of their older guys too long. It was just time to move on. Well, with the Cowboys, after they got rid of Landry, they actually completely bottomed out and finished 1-15 the following year. But then within 3 years, they won 3 out of the next 4 Super Bowls.
Interesting. So you're saying as a Gooner, there are good times ahead, potentially, if that holds?
If Unai Emery is Jimmy Johnson, then good times are ahead.
Excellent, Phil. I think I might have to leave it at that.
I think that was all we had to talk about, and a great episode, I think it was. So much excitement with the start of the 3rd round of the FA Cup. Amazing Liverpool versus Man City game.
Incredible game.
Literally a Citizen Kane of games. If they say that Citizen Kane was the best movie of all time, that Liverpool versus Man City was a Citizen Kane of a game.
I thought you were talking about Tottenham there for a moment.
More like 50 Shades of Grey.
As we head into the second half of the English Premier League, we have a very open title race. We have Liverpool on top, followed by Manchester City, followed very closely by Tottenham. And don't forget, we've got the relegation battle as well, which will be fantastic. Absolutely fantastic to keep an eye on. We've got Huddersfield, Fulham, Southampton, Cardiff, Burnley and Newcastle. There's 6 teams there that are fighting for their Premier League lives. It'll be fantastic. Can't wait to talk more about the second half of 2019.
Exciting second half of the season coming up. As always, we thank you for listening, and we'll be back with another episode shortly. Thank you, as always, to my brother from down under, Aaron Ayers.
My pleasure.